The breaking point, the chamber fell silent as the final vote registered across the massive display. 743 votes in favor, 0 against. The Galactic Unity Council had spoken with one voice for the first time in 3 centuries. And that voice had just condemned an entire species to extinction. Ambassador Dek of the Zeraphine Empire stood slowly, his crystalline features catching the chamber's pale light. As the longest-serving member of the council, the honor of delivering the verdict fell to him. His voice resonated through the vast hall, each word carrying the weight of absolute authority. The matter of species designation, 847H, commonly known as humanity, has been decided. After 50 standard years of failed integration, escalating conflicts, and repeated violations of galactic unity protocols, this council finds that the continued existence of humanity poses an unacceptable threat to galactic peace and order. In the human observation gallery, Ambassador Elena Vasquez gripped the railing until her knuckles turned white. She had known this moment would come, but seeing it unfold still felt like watching a star die. Beside her, the handful of remaining human diplomats sat in stunned silence, their faces pale with disbelief. Vec continued, his words measured and final. The Council hereby authorizes the complete species termination protocol. All human settlements, vessels, and installations are to be eliminated within 1 galactic rotation. The species designated as humanity is declared extinct as of this moment. The chamber erupted in a mixture of relief and solemn acknowledgement from the alien delegates. For them, this was a necessary surgical procedure to ensure galactic stability. For the humans watching, it was the end of everything they had ever known. 3 days later, the genocide began. Admiral Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the UHS Defiant, humanity's last remaining dreadnought, watching through the viewport as the Zeraphine 4th Fleet arranged itself in attack formation around New Tokyo Colony. The irony was not lost on her that humanity's newest settlement, home to over 2 million souls, would be among the first to burn. "Admiral, we're receiving surrender transmissions from the colony," reported Lieutenant James Park, his voice tight, with barely controlled emotion. "They're asking us to escort the evacuation transports." Chun closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of command settling on her shoulders like a lead blanket. She had fought in the border wars, survived the siege of Alpha Centauri, and commanded fleets that had pushed back alien invasions. But this was different. This time, there was nowhere to retreat to. "How many ships do we have left, Lieutenant?" 17. "Vessels, Admiral. 8 destroyers, 6 frigates, 2 heavy cruisers, and us. Against the Zeraphine 4th Fleet's 230 ships. The mathematics of destruction had never been more clear." "Admiral," came another voice from the communication station. "The Zeraphine commander is hailing us. Fleet Commander Zix demands we surrender our vessels and submit to processing." Processing. Such a clinical term for execution. Chun straightened her uniform and walked to the center of the bridge. Around her, the crew of the Defiant worked with quiet efficiency, each person knowing they were likely living their final hours. These were the best humanity had to offer, volunteers who had chosen to stay behind and buy time for the evacuation efforts that would never come. "Put him through," she ordered. The main screen flickered, revealing the angular, insectoid features of Fleet Commander Zix. His compound eyes glittered with what might have been satisfaction or hunger. When he spoke, his voice carried the mechanical precision of a universal translator. "Human Admiral Chun, your species has been found guilty of crimes against galactic peace. Surrender your vessels immediately, and your crew will be granted swift termination rather than prolonged suffering." Chun stepped forward, her jaw set with determination. "Fleet Commander, I have a counter-proposal. You have 10 minutes to withdraw. Your forces from this system before we demonstrate why the galaxy was right to fear us. Zix's mandibles clicked in what the translator rendered as laughter. Admiral, you possess 17 primitive vessels against my fleet of 230 advanced warships. Your bravado is admirable, but ultimately meaningless. Then I suppose you'll find out in 9 minutes and 30 seconds, Chun replied, signaling for the channel to be closed. As the screen went dark, the bridge crew turned to look at their admiral with a mixture of pride and terror. They all knew this was a death sentence, but Chun's defiance had kindled something in their hearts that had been dying since the council's verdict. Admiral, whispered Commander Torres, Chun's first officer. What's the plan? Chun moved to the tactical display, studying the enemy formation. The Seraphim ships were arranged in a standard pacification pattern, designed to minimize damage to infrastructure while maximizing psychological impact. They wanted the colony intact for their own use after the humans were gone. We're going to give them something they don't expect, she said quietly. We're going to show them what happens when humans stop playing by civilized rules. She activated the ship's internal communications, her voice carrying to every deck, every compartment, every soul aboard the 17 vessels of humanity's final fleet. This is Admiral Chun. You all know what's at stake here. The galaxy has decided that humanity is too dangerous to exist. They've seen our potential and decided that we must be eliminated before we can fully realize it. They are not wrong to fear us, but they have made one critical mistake. The ships hung in space like defiant sparks against the darkness, while around them, the Seraphim fleet tightened its grip like a metal fist. They think they understand what we are. They've seen us bound by treaties, restrained by laws, limited by our own morality. They've watched us hold back, compromise, and try to find peaceful solutions. But what they've never seen is what we become when all of that is stripped away. On New Tokyo colony below, families huddled in shelters, watching the sky fill with alien warships. Children cried, while parents whispered reassurances they didn't believe. In the colony's communication center, Director Walsh began broadcasting on all frequencies, begging for mercy that would never come. Today, the galaxy will witness the birth of something new, Chun continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. Not the humanity that sought acceptance among the stars, but the humanity that was forged in the crucible of Earth's history. The humanity that crawled out of caves and conquered a world that tried to kill us at every turn. The countdown timer on the bridge showed 3 minutes remaining. Around them, Seraphim ships began charging their weapons, lance batteries glowing with deadly energy. They want to eliminate us because we're dangerous. They're about to learn just how dangerous we can be when we stop trying to be civilized. Chun walked to the command chair, settling into it with the calm of someone who had found peace with their fate. All ships, this is Admiral Chun. Prepare for Operation Last Light. We're going to send a message that will echo across the galaxy. For 1,000 years. The plan was insane, brilliant, and utterly human. Instead of engaging the Seraphim fleet in traditional combat, the 17 human ships would ram the colony's fusion reactors, creating a chain reaction that would turn New Tokyo into a miniature sun. The explosion would destroy the Seraphim Fourth Fleet and serve as a warning to the galaxy about the price of trying to exterminate humanity. Admiral, reported the tactical officer, Seraphim ships are moving into firing positions. We have 30 seconds. Chun nodded and activated the emergency broadcast system. Her message would be transmitted on every frequency, carried by quantum relays to every corner of the galaxy. It would be the last official communication from humanity, and she intended to make it count. Attention, Galactic Unity Council. This is Admiral Sarah Chun of the United Human Systems, broadcasting from the bridge of the UHS Defiant. You have declared us extinct. You have come to our worlds with fire and death. You believe this is the end of our story. The tactical display showed Seraphim weapons powering up, preparing to fire. On the colony below, evacuation sirens wailed uselessly. You are mistaken. This is not our ending. This is the moment when humanity stops pretending to be something we're not. For 50 years, we've tried to fit into your vision of galactic civilization. We've followed your rules, honored your treaties, and restrained our nature to make you comfortable. The first Seraphim lance struck the Defiant's shields, sending shockwaves through the ship. Emergency lights flickered as power systems strained under the assault. But you've taught us something valuable today. You've shown us that mercy is weakness, that restraint is foolishness, that trying to be civilized in an uncivilized galaxy will only get you killed. More ships opened fire. The destroyer UHS Intrepid exploded in a ball of superheated plasma, its crew of 300 vaporized in an instant. Chan watched unflinching as her fleet died around her. So here is humanity's final gift to the galaxy. You wanted us extinct? You've got your wish. The humanity that sought peace among the stars dies today. But something else is being born in its place, something that your greatest fears couldn't imagine. The bridge shook violently as another blast penetrated their defenses. Smoke filled the air as control consoles exploded in showers of sparks. But Chun's voice remained steady, transmitted across the void to every world in the galaxy. We gave you every chance to accept us. We offered cooperation, friendship, shared knowledge, and culture. You repaid that offer with genocide. So now we offer you something else entirely. The Defiant's engines roared to life as Chon engaged the ramming. Protocol. Around her, the surviving ships of her fleet did the same, accelerating toward the colony's reactor complex with deadly purpose. We offer you war. Not the civilized warfare of treaties and conventions, but the primal war that forged us in Earth's volcanic crucible. When we emerge from the ashes of your making, we won't be seeking integration or acceptance. We'll be seeking something far more fundamental. The Seraphim commander screamed orders as he realized what the humans intended, but it was too late. The die had been cast, and momentum was carrying them all toward an explosive conclusion. Survival, evolution, dominance. The Defiant struck. The primary fusion reactor at 90% of light speed. The explosion that followed briefly outshone the system star, visible from worlds dozens of light years away. When the light faded and the radiation cleared, nothing remained of New Tokyo Colony, the Seraphim Fourth Fleet, or humanity's last official presence in the galaxy. But in the months that followed, as news of the explosion spread across the galactic networks, a strange phenomenon began to occur. Human settlements that had been marked as destroyed were found to be empty rather than eliminated. Evacuation ships that should have been intercepted and destroyed had simply vanished without a trace. The galaxy had succeeded in killing civilized humanity. What it had accidentally unleashed in the process was something far worse, something that would make them long for the days when humans tried to play by the rules. Admiral Sarah Chun was dead, her ship scattered as atoms across the void. But her final transmission had planted a seed in the darkness between the stars, and that seed was beginning to grow into something that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of what it meant to be human. The war for humanity's survival was over. The war for the galaxy's future was about to begin. Asterisk. When humanity stops playing by the rules 6 months after the New Tokyo incident, Director Kale of Seraphim Intelligence stood before a holographic display that showed the ghost routes of the Outer Rim territories. Red markers indicated missing vessels, lost outposts, and unexplained phenomena that were becoming disturbingly common across the galaxy's frontier regions. "Show me the pattern again," he commanded, his crystalline fingers dancing across the helmet. Control interface. The display shifted, highlighting a web of disappearances that stretched across 17 star systems. Supply convoys vanishing between hyperspace jumps. Mining platforms found empty, their crews gone without a trace. Deep space monitoring stations broadcasting automated distress signals from crews that had simply evaporated. The losses are accelerating, reported his aide, a young Xeraphim analyst named Vex. In the past 30 days alone, we've lost contact with 47 vessels and installations. The pattern suggests systematic targeting rather than random piracy. Kale studied the data with growing unease. As one of the galaxy's foremost intelligence experts, he had seen the aftermath of Admiral Chun's final broadcast countless times. The explosion at New Tokyo had been visible across multiple star systems, a brilliant flare that announced humanity's defiant end to the galaxy. The Galactic Unity Council had declared the human question permanently resolved, but the disappearances suggested something else entirely. Director, Vex continued, pulling up another display, there's something else. We've been analyzing the electromagnetic signatures from the affected areas. There are traces of technology that don't match any known galactic specifications. The hologram showed spectral analyses of energy patterns found at several disappearance sites. The readings were subtle, almost ghostly, but they carried signatures that made Kale's compound eyes narrow with concern. These readings, he said slowly, they're similar to human technology, but evolved, enhanced beyond anything in their previous capabilities. Impossible, Director. The humans are extinct. We witnessed their final fleet's destruction personally. Kale turned away from the display, his mind racing through possibilities that defied official reality. What if extinction wasn't the end? What if it was transformation? Before Vex could respond, an urgent alert klaxon began wailing throughout the intelligence center. Emergency communications flooded in from across the sector, all reporting the same impossible phenomenon. The Merchant Guild's primary shipping hub at Kepler Station had gone silent. 2 hours later, Kale stood aboard the UZS Penetrator, the Intelligence Division's most advanced stealth cruiser, as it approached the coordinates where Kepler Station should have been. What they found defied explanation. The massive space station, capable of housing over 100,000 beings, hung in space, like a dead monument. Its lights were dark, its communication arrays silent, its docking bays empty of the countless ships that should have been cycling through its facilities. Life signs? Kale asked. None detected, Director. But the station's structure is intact. No signs of battle damage or system failure. They docked with the station's emergency airlock, and Kale led a team of investigators through corridors that should have been bustling with activity. Instead, they found empty halls, abandoned workstations, and signs of sudden departure everywhere they looked. It's like everyone just vanished, whispered one of the investigators. Food still on the tables, personal belongings in quarters, but no bodies, no signs of struggle. Kale examined a control console that had been left active, its displays still showing shipping manifests and docking schedules. This wasn't an attack in the traditional sense. This was something else entirely. They made their way to the station's central command center, where they found evidence that chilled Kale to his crystalline core. Scrawled across the main display, in what looked like human writing, were 3 words that shouldn't have been possible. We are evolved. Director, called the team's technical specialist from across the room. You need to see this. Kale approached the specialist, who was analyzing the station's security footage. The recording showed normal activity up until approximately 6 hours ago, when every single being on the station had simply stopped what they were doing and walked calmly to the docking bays. They weren't forced or coerced, the specialist explained. They moved with purpose, as if responding to some kind of signal or command. Then they boarded ships that aren't in any of our databases and departed in perfect formation. The footage showed vessels that were unlike anything in the galactic registry. Sleek, organic-looking ships that seemed to bend light around their hulls, making them difficult to track visually. They moved with impossible grace and coordination, as if controlled by a single mind. "Run a spectral analysis on those ships," Kale ordered. The results confirmed his growing fears. The energy signatures matched the traces they had been finding at disappearance sites across the outer rim. But more disturbing was what the analysis revealed about their origin. The ships incorporated human design principles, but enhanced with technology that appeared to be decades ahead of anything humanity had possessed before their supposed extinction. It was as if someone had taken human innovation and accelerated it beyond all reasonable limits. Kale's communicator chimed with an incoming transmission. When he activated it, Admiral Chun's face appeared on the screen. She looked different than she had in her final broadcast 6 months ago. Her skin had a subtle luminescence. Her eyes held depths that seemed to reflect the void of space itself. And when she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that resonated in ways that made Kale's carapace tingle with unease. "Director Kale of Zeraphim. Intelligence. I trust you've enjoyed your investigation of our work." "Impossible," Kale breathed. "You're dead. We saw your ship destroyed at New Tokyo." Chun's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes suggested vast amusement. "Death is such a limited concept, Director. The galaxy killed civilized humanity, that's true. But in doing so, you freed us from the constraints that held us back. What have you done to the people of this station? We offered them evolution, the same gift that was forced upon us when you tried to exterminate our species." Chun leaned forward slightly, and Kale could see that her pupils had become star-shaped, as if they were windows to the cosmic void itself. "You see, Director, extinction taught us something valuable about survival. When you strip away civilization, law, morality, and restraint, what remains is pure adaptive potential." The transmission flickered, and for a moment, Kale could see past Chun to what appeared to be the bridge of a vessel unlike anything he had ever encountered. The walls seemed alive, pulsing with organic energy, while figures moved through the background with inhuman grace. The beings from this station chose to join us willingly once they understood what we were offering: unity of purpose, enhancement of capability, freedom from the limitations of individual existence. You're talking about assimilation, absorption. You've become some kind of collective organism. Chun's smile was beautiful and terrifying. We've become what humanity was always meant to be, Director. What we would have been if the galaxy hadn't tried to cage us with treaties and conventions. She paused, studying his face through the transmission. But don't worry. We haven't forgotten our manners entirely. We're prepared to offer the galaxy the same choice you offered us. Kale felt his blood crystallize with fear. What choice? Evolution or extinction? The galaxy can join us voluntarily and share in our advancement, or it can resist and face the consequences. Chun's image began to fade as the transmission weakened. But unlike the mercy we once showed, we won't be giving you 50 years to decide. The communication cut, leaving Kale and his team alone in the abandoned command center. In the silence that followed, they could hear the subtle sounds of their ship's systems, the whisper of recycled air, the distant hum of the station's emergency power. "Director," Vex whispered, "what do we do?" Kale stared at the blank screen. Where Chun's image had been, his mind struggling to process the implications of what they had discovered. The galaxy had succeeded in its goal of eliminating humanity as they knew it. But in the process, they had accidentally created something far more dangerous than anything they had originally feared. "We report to the Council," he said finally. "We tell them that their successful genocide has produced an enemy that makes the original humanity look like peaceful philosophers." As they prepared to leave Kepler Station, Kale took one last look around the empty command center. On every screen, The same message appeared, written in the flowing script of a dozen different languages. We are coming home. The return journey to Seraphim Prime took 3 days, during which Kale compiled his report and tried to understand the full scope of what humanity had become. The evidence suggested that the scattered survivors of the genocide had somehow merged their consciousness and technology into a collective entity that transcended individual existence. But the most disturbing aspect wasn't their transformation. It was their apparent patience. For 6 months, they had been working in the shadows, gathering resources, studying their former enemies, and slowly building something that the galaxy was utterly unprepared to face. When Kale presented his findings to the emergency session of the Seraphim High Command, the reaction was predictable. Disbelief, denial, and finally, a growing horror as the implications became clear. "You're telling us," said Supreme Commander Thix, her voice tight with controlled panic, "that our successful extermination of humanity has created a collective consciousness with advanced technology and the HFY ability to assimilate other species?" "That appears to be the case, Supreme Commander. The transformation seems to have accelerated their technological development beyond anything we thought possible. They're no longer bound by individual limitations or the moral constraints that once defined their species. And they're offering the galaxy a choice between voluntary assimilation and forced extinction?" Kale nodded grimly. "Based on Admiral Chan's transmission, they view this as a form of justice. We forced evolution upon them through attempted genocide. Now they're offering us the same choice." The command chamber fell silent as the assembled military leaders contemplated the magnitude of their situation. They had faced alien invasions, territorial disputes, and resource wars, but they had never encountered anything like this. "What are our options?" asked Fleet Admiral Zenth. Before Kale could respond, every screen in the chamber flickered to life. Admiral Chun's transformed image appeared simultaneously across all displays, her star-shaped pupils reflecting the light of distant suns. "Greetings, Seraphim High Command. I trust Director Kale has briefed you on our recent activities." Her voice carried the same unsettling harmonics, but now there was an undertone of vast patience, as if she were speaking across eons rather than light years. "We wanted to address you directly before you began making plans for resistance. Such efforts would be counterproductive for all involved." Supreme Commander Thix stood, her crystalline features hardening with defiance. "We will never submit to your collective madness, human. The galaxy will unite against your abomination." Chun's expression remained serene. "You misunderstand our nature, Supreme Commander. We are not the humanity you remember. We are what humanity becomes when all limitations are removed. And we are not offering submission." The image shifted, showing vast fleets of the organic-looking vessels moving through space with impossible coordination. There were thousands of them, each one larger and more advanced than anything in the current galactic arsenal. "We are offering transcendence, the same gift that the galaxy's attempted genocide accidentally gave us." Chun's voice carried a note of genuine sadness. "Your people, all the species of the galaxy, are trapped in cycles of individual competition and limited perception. We can free you from those constraints. And if we refuse, then you will discover what humanity learned during our extinction, that evolution never stops, and that sometimes it requires the elimination of obsolete forms." The transmission began to fade, but Chan's final words echoed with absolute certainty. "The galaxy has 30 days to choose. We suggest you use that time wisely." The screens went dark, leaving the Seraphim leadership alone with the terrible knowledge that their greatest victory had become their ultimate defeat. They had succeeded in destroying humanity, only to create something infinitely more dangerous in its place. As emergency alerts began flooding in from across the galaxy, reporting similar encounters with the transformed humans, Kale realized that Admiral Chun's final broadcast from New Tokyo had been more than a dying declaration of defiance. It had been a promise. And now, that promise was being kept. Asterisk.